Hey everyone, welcome back to the Board Game Spotlight. Today we're going to look at Lockup from Thunderworks Games. This is for 1 to 5 players, and it plays in about 90 minutes. So let's take it to the table, and I'm going to tell you about it. Lockup is a competitive worker placement game where players are going to manage a group of minions. In this case, we have the goblins and the kobolds, and you're going to manage this group that is locked up inside of Kolbach Prison. Now this is a prison where you're trying to gain resources from different locations, and you're trying to use those resources to turn in items, to create items, or to gain goons along the outside of the board. Now the game is played in 3 phases. You have the roll call phase, which is when we're actually going to use our workers and place them around the board. You have the lights out phase where you're going to go around the board and activate the different locations to gain their action. And then you have the patrol phase, which is where you reset the board, you check to see if any raids occur, and then you go into the next round. So let's go ahead and talk about the roll call phase, because this is really where most of the game lies, where you are trying to use your workers and you're trying to gain actions throughout the prison. So what's going to happen is players are going to utilize these workers, and you'll notice that there's a range from 0 to 5. So your scout is 0. Your leader is equal to the strength of the power cubes you have on your board. And then you have 2 through 5. Now what you're going to do is you're placing these workers either face up or face down throughout the prison, trying to take the action. Now in order to gain first or second inside of a location, that is going to be determined based on the power level of your crew that's in that particular section. So what you can do on your turn is you can play any number of these workers to a location. Now keep in mind that you're only going to have these 6 workers to use in a round. So if you place 2, 3, or 4 workers in a location, you are severely limiting yourself throughout the rest of the round to take actions at other locations. Now granted, you might really need to win the smithy, so placing 2 or 3 of your workers here might be best for you because you're trying to complete an item that you have gained on a previous turn. But otherwise, just keep in mind that you're limited to these 6 workers in a round. You really have to manage them very well in order to maximize the efficiency of your turn. So what we can do is we can play one of these workers face up into a location. Depending on the player count, you can place either 2 or 3 of your workers face down on a location. So throughout the round, you can have a number of 2 or 3 face down workers on the board. So we could place 2 face down, or you could place however you want to split that. It's up to you. So depending on the player count, you can have a number of face down tiles or workers on the board. So we would continue to place our workers throughout the prison, trying to gain actions at each of these locations. After players have finished placing workers in the roll call phase, we're going to move into the lights out phase. This is where we're going to determine the strength of the different locations, and then players are going to gain the rewards of that listed location. Now you're going to go in order around the board, starting with the exercise yard. It's number 1. And then you go to the sewers and you'll go around the board from 1 to 8. When we activate a location, so we were the only one at the exercise yard, so we would gain this power cube and add it to our board. We also retain the first player marker, which will break ties, and that's really important throughout the game. Here we have 1, 2 of these resources from the sewers, and our opponent got 1. Here at the infirmary, we don't know what their strength was, so 2 to 4, we would gain these 2 potions. However, we would also take the suspicion marker if we didn't have this scout. So this scout allows us to not take suspicion markers, and we'll talk about what suspicion markers do here in a minute. Up here at the smithy, we lost, so we do not gain those resources. No one went to the commissary for gold, Here at the Chow Hall, we lost, so we would get second place because they have more power than we do, which means they gain this suspicion marker, and they're allowed to turn in 1 resource to gain any 1 goon around the board, or they can turn in 4 to gain 2 goons. Now, the goons are important because there is some set collection in the game. The dwarves offer set collection. Some of the goons are going to give you victory points for meeting a specific goal at the end of the game. So they could turn in 2 resources if they wanted to. You could turn 2 resources in, and they could gain this cultist, which goes into their tableau. And we're going to move to the cell block. Now, the cell block is where you get to craft items using resources that you've acquired. So they have 1 of these iron left. They could turn in the iron, and they could craft the crooked pipe, which is going to give them 4 victory points at the end of the game, and it gives them 1 of these symbols for set collection. So if you lose at a location and you don't get an action or a reward from one of those, or if you just simply choose not to take it, you get moved to the library. Now, the library has Tome Cards, and Tome Cards are really powerful. They break the game rules. They're going to allow you to gain resources. They'll let you pay less resource costs on items. So these Tome Cards are awarded to the player who's there. First place gets to draw 2, keep 1, and then second place just draws the top card, and that card is kept with them secret, and they can use it at any time throughout the game. So after we have finished through the lights out phase, you're going to go into the patrol phase. The patrol phase is where you have to discard down if you are over your resource limit. There may also be raids. So let's talk about suspicion markers, because these suspicion markers are integral to the game. If at any point you run out of suspicion markers and you could need to place one and there are none left, a raid occurs. The player who has the most suspicion markers is going to lose victory points or reputation points from the track. Second place loses points as well. So you really have to make sure that you're managing your suspicion throughout the game, because when you win a location, unless you're able to use your lookout or your scout, you will take that suspicion marker. And if you don't take a goon that is adding suspicion to the board, you're going to continue to accrue this suspicion throughout the game, because we're going to put out at the end of the round, we'll move all of these goons up, we'll remove that one, and so you're going to have to move all of these goons around, placing new goons, and as you can see, you're going to gain more suspicion on the board. And then over here, there's even more suspicion accruing. So if you are not managing that, then there's going to be more raids. The guards are going to get angry, and they are going to come looking for trouble. After you have finished the patrol phase, you'll move the round marker a step, and then you're going to continue to play another round. You'll go to the roll call and then the lights out phase. Now, I want to talk about these objectives. These are awards that players can win. So here, this Gym Rat card, and these are instant effects. So the instant that a player meets this objective, they gain that card. These are award goals, and if any time a player meets this goal, they gain this card. But this can move around the table, because if you're able to exceed that of which another player has, you will gain that award. And then these are Endgame Objectives. They're going to give players victory points based on completing that objective. Again, remember that the goons are also going to give you potential Endgame Objective points, and you're going to play 6 rounds. At the end of the 6th round, the player with the most reputation points is declared the winner. So the bluffing mechanism that Lockup uses with workers, in which you can place them face down or face up, is really, really thinky. It adds a layer to the game that most worker placements do not have, because you can place workers face down early, you could place them late, or you could place them mid-round, but it's just that psychological nature of, if you see a player place 2 face down tokens, you have no idea what they've placed. Now, as the round moves on and they place more workers and they place them face up, you can gain that information because you know, well, one of these is not the 3, but maybe it was a 5 and a 4. You just don't know, and that really plays into messing with players' heads. So if Lockup looks like a game that's interesting to you, if you want to know more about Lockup, take a look at the description below for a link to their Kickstarter campaign. This has been Derek with the Board Game Spotlight, and this has been your preview of Lockup.